In today's episode, I'm going to share with you the biggest money lessons that I have learned over my journey of taking my net worth from a negative $40,000 with credit card debt and student loan debt to now a seven-figure net worth. I'm going to be sharing personal stories from my life that I have never shared publicly before to help you understand some of the biggest financial lessons that I have learned. Expect to hear some juicy stories about my life that hopefully are going to give you some really great insight into money lessons you can learn as well. For those of you that don't know me, I am Whitney Morrison, and I help individuals create financial freedom without restrictive money plans. So if you're ready to change your relationship with money so you actually build wealth, hit subscribe below and let's make this happen. You can also follow along via the Holistic Money Podcast, which you'll find in the description below. So I want to set the stage by taking you back to 2015. I was 29 years old. I was working at Wells Fargo Advisors. This was the first job that I had gotten out of college. I was making about $65,000, $70,000 at Wells Fargo Advisors, but the problem was that every financial decision I was making about my life up until that point came from the mindset of, I'll make better financial decisions when I just make more money. All I need to do is make more money. So I would just continuously make financial decisions based off of the money that I thought I was going to be making in the future. I was living in an apartment in downtown Austin. The rent was over $1,800. I had a brand new car. I had a Nissan Rogue. I was leasing it. I think my lease was somewhere around $400. And frankly, I just didn't have a lot of money left over for lifestyle expenses, like food and gas and all the other things that I want to do. And so at this point, I had about $10,000 to $15,000 in credit card debt. I had student loans that I was trying to pay off, and I had a great deal of shame about money. I had been a financial planner at this point for a few years. Everyone kind of looked at me as someone who they thought was good with money. They looked at my car and looked at my nice downtown apartment, and everybody thought that I had it made. And secretly in the background, I was really stressed out about money. I had lied to pretty much everyone in my life at that point, including my family, including my boyfriends and partners that I had had at the time about my financial situation. And my money was just my dirty little secret. This, my friends, brings me to my first big money lesson, and that is to not make financial decisions based on the money that you think you're going to be making in the future, which is how I was making basically all of my financial decisions at that point, and instead make financial decisions based on the money that you're making today. As much as I loved my downtown apartment and that car, the stress and shame that I felt about money was just absolutely not worth it, but I didn't have the foresight in that moment to really know that that was true for me. I thought that what was more important to me was a nice car and a nice home and nice clothes and going out and spending a lot of money. But really what was actually going on is that I was getting more stressed, more worried, and more afraid with money. So I started to get desperate, and I told myself that the solution for me was that I just needed to find a new job that would pay me more money. I was highly avoidant of my financial situation, so I didn't really know how much more money I needed to actually be making. I didn't really understand the reality of my finances, but I just knew that something needed to change. So I met this online course creator, and she offered to pay me $1,500 a month to work for her full time. Mind you, I had a job that was paying $65,000 to $70,000 a year, and I couldn't afford my lifestyle. I don't know what in the hell I was thinking when I decided to leave Wells Fargo Advisors and go work for this course creator and only make $1,500 a month. It was a big, big shift to my lifestyle in that moment. And I did make a lot of changes because of this job, because I really wanted to learn how to build a business and be entrepreneurial. But the next big money lesson that I learned was that just having a strong burning desire to do something, especially like start a business or take a low paying job, is not necessarily enough to make it a great decision for you if you don't have a strong financial foundation to lean back on. And the truth for me was that I didn't. I didn't have a savings account. I didn't have investments to fall back on. I didn't have any backup plans. So to take a jump to such a risky role with an online course creator paying me so much less money, I just wouldn't make the same financial decision at this time, because what I didn't realize for myself was no matter how bad I really wanted to do that, what I needed to feel safe and taken care of financially, if you ever decide to make a big career change or start a business, make sure to have a strong financial foundation first before you actually decide to make the leap. Unfortunately for me, I had to learn this lesson twice, because after only 1 year of working with this course creator, I decided to quit my job and start my business again. But this time I was in an even worse financial position. But before I tell you about that, I want to tell you a couple lessons that I learned while making $18,000 a year working for this creator. So I went to work and I ended up learning so much. She taught me so much about money. She taught me so much about finances, things that I had never learned at Wells Fargo Advisor. So I was so thankful to her for that experience and that exposure. I ended up moving out of my downtown apartment into a 4-bedroom house where I rented a room, paying $500 a month. I got rid of my Nissan Rogue and I ended up buying a used car. And I slowly started to make a little bit of progress towards my credit card debt, but truthfully, not much. This was the next money lesson that I learned, and this is that you were never stuck. Financial change can happen fast as long as you're willing to make the changes that you need to make in your life in order to reduce your lifestyle expenses. So for me, I ended up breaking a lease at this apartment, which did cost me a little bit of money to do, but the money I saved moving into this new house and reducing my rent and getting rid of my car made it all completely worth it. So the money lesson for me here was making sure that my lifestyle was actually matching my income. And because of this job and the amount of money that I was making, I actually had to be really, really careful with this. So it taught me a great money lesson about what's actually possible and how little you really can just live on. The next money lesson that I'm going to share with y'all is a pretty vulnerable one. It's an incredibly honest reflection on myself during this time and the decisions that I was making and the reasons behind the decisions that I was making. But I think it's a really important lesson to share. So here I go. About 8 months after working with this course creator, she held an event in Austin and I ended up meeting a man who would end up becoming my fiance only 4 months later. Y'all, I want to give you a little context to my brain at this point in time because money actually played a role in this decision for me. The man that I had met was seemingly very wealthy. He drove a nice car, he lived in a nice home. He was an entrepreneur. And when we first started dating, he made me feel like I never had to worry about money. And at that point in my life, because of my financial situation, because of the credit card debt that I was in, because of the very limited amount of money that I had, I was desperately wanting to feel like someone would save me. And that is what I had initially started to feel when I had met this guy in my relationship. I was really, really not confident about myself, and I was really, really not confident about money. So I didn't have the financial conversations with him in the beginning of our relationship. I ended up moving in with him and he just started to pay for a lot of my life. Like I said, I just really wanted someone to save me, but I wasn't looking at what were all of the red flags around me. He had gotten into some pretty intense legal battles in the Austin community. He was really secretive about how he used his time. He never would tell me where he was or who he was with or what he was doing. He had talked to me several times about starting my own business. He was very encouraging and he was a big reason why I decided after 1 year of working with this course creator that I wanted to start my own business. But because him and I didn't have great conversations about money and I didn't really tell him the truth about my financial situation, and it turns out he didn't really tell me the truth about his financial situation, I ended up making the decision to leave my job from a very, very unstable place. I had no money in savings, I had debt that I had accumulated, and I had no income. So truly, I made the same mistake again. I ended up quitting this job without a sturdy plan and starting this business and just hoping with my fingers crossed that this unreliable man that I had met in my life was just going to keep bankrolling me to live and pay the bills, even though he was incredibly inconsistent. He was not a good partner, not a good communicator, and lied to me about tons of things. Y'all, this was a huge and incredibly painful money lesson to learn because after quitting my job and starting my business for only a month and a half, two key things happened. First and foremost, my former employer, the course creator that paid me $1,500 a month, $18,000 a year, sued me when I started my own business. I got a lawsuit literally from her saying that I was going in direct competition with her. By the way, she was a multimillionaire. I had credit card debt. and no savings. And she sued me. And I freaked out. Then, only 2 days later, I found out that my fiance at the time was cheating on me. And all of that happened in the same week. This was quite honestly the most challenging time of my life. I'm even getting emotional even thinking about this right now. It was the most challenging thing that I've ever been through. I had to call my mother, who came to Austin the next day to come get me out of the house that I was living in with my fiance at the time. She had to hire a lawyer for me. She had to help me get an apartment. She had to pay my first month's rent. She had to pay my deposit. She ended up having to pay a few months' rent while I was trying to get on my feet and get a job. And the truth is that my mother was not in a financial position to do any of that for me. So as I'm sure you can imagine, this was a very potent money lesson for me to learn. Number one, it was to not go for a relationship with a partner simply because they are wealthy. And I know that saying this, it just sounds like, well, yeah, of course not. In the moment, in my brain at that time, the way that I was thinking about money, the way that I just wanted to be rescued and saved with money, I had to learn that lesson. I also had to learn how to have real conversations about money with future partners since I left that relationship. Every person that I dated moving forward after that, I made sure to talk about money, to let them know my financial situation, how much money I've made, how much money I felt comfortable spending. I would ask questions about their financial situation too, just to make sure that we were on the same page financially. And so I wasn't putting them in a difficult financial position and they weren't putting me in a difficult financial position. The next lesson that I learned again was to not take a big financial risk like starting a new business or taking a job that pays you significantly less money without establishing a secure financial foundation first. It is so critical that you learn strong money management skills and you have good financial habits before you take any large financial risk. And this was a lesson that I had to learn because I made the same mistake twice. I ended up taking big financial risk without having a solid foundation, and it made me so incredibly stressed out and insecure and depressed, frankly, simply because I was so afraid all the time. So after I ended up splitting up with my fiance, moving into this apartment and getting back on my feet, the first thing that I needed to do was to find a job that paid me well. I was in quite the hole financially at this point, and it was a really challenging thing for me to do mentally, simply because I was looking to find a financial advisor position when my own financial life was such a mess. So it took so much mental strength for me to go through this process, to interview powerfully. But I decided in that moment that regardless of everything that had happened in my financial life and the decisions that I had made, that I was still valuable, that the skills that I had from my positions in previous financial roles were incredibly valuable, and that my decisions that I had made during that time did not define me. So I ended up interviewing at a few different places, and I decided that I would not accept anything under $100,000. Mind you, the last job that I had was the one at Wells Fargo Advisors, where I was making $65,000 to $70,000. I could have just taken the first thing that was available because I was afraid. I knew that even though I was in the position that I was in, that I still had incredible life skills and money skills that I could bring into an organization. So instead of focusing on all the things that I thought I had done wrong with money, instead I focused on the unique perspectives and the unique value that I could offer a financial organization because of my story and because of my life experience. So I ended up reaching out to a fintech startup that I had wanted to work for a long time. And I just told them what I had been up to over the past couple of years. I told them I was at Wells Fargo Advisors. I told them I quit to work for this course creator. I let them know all of the different ways that I was thinking about money, all of the lessons that I had learned over the past year. And guess what? I got offered a 6-figure role as a financial advisor at my dream company. This was a huge turning point in my relationship with money. This was a huge turning point in my confidence in myself and my story and being authentic and truthful about money, because I started to learn that what is most important in your life and even with your money is truth, is acknowledgement, is really looking at what's happening and starting to address it and make a plan for it. And that is exactly what I was doing. And that was exactly the story that I was selling and the story that I was sharing. So this is the last money lesson that I'm going to leave you with on this episode. because this is really when my financial journey started to shift. From here is when I started to pay off my debt and save money. I met my now husband, and we ended up buying a few properties together, and we have grown our net worth significantly over the past 6 years. But I wanted to leave you with this final money lesson, which honestly I think is the most important money lesson I have learned that is in this episode and just generally in my life. And that is that no matter where you're starting from, no matter what your current financial situation looks like today, no matter if you think you've made a lot of mistakes or you did it wrong or you should be further along or you're not in the place that you want to be, I want to tell you that you've got to start seeing the lessons and the value of every single decision that you've made leading up into this point, because it is what is going to get you to your dream life financially. You have to be able to see yourself and the value that you have. It is the starting point for you to completely transform your financial life. I know from personal experience because it's exactly what I did. It is the big shift in my money mindset that I had to make. And it's going to be the big shift in your money mindset that you are going to have to make on your financial journey to get to that financial freedom goal that I know that you have for yourself. So thank you so much for listening to this episode. Thank you so much for seeing me, for listening to my vulnerable stories. I appreciate your support, and I hope that you learned some lessons from this episode as well. If you did like this episode, please leave me a review. And if you have a friend that you think would also benefit from this episode, send it over to them and let's start to work with them on their holistic money journey. All right, y'all, I hope you have a great week, and I will see you in the next episode.